Dear students, again today I welcome you all for this next lesson, that is 2.3, connecting the dots, from your textbook page number 61. Steve Jobs, 1955 to 2011, was an American entrepreneur, business magnate, inventor and industrial designer. He was the chairman, also the chief executive officer and co-founder of Apple Inc. He is widely recognized as one of the pioneers of the microcomputer revolution of 1970s and 1980s. Here if you see the meaning, entrepreneur, a person who organizes or operates a business venture. A pioneer meaning one who goes before, or the beginner one. So if you see the picture here, you will be able to understand about whom are we going to study in this particular lesson, namely Steve Jobs, who invented Apple, founded the company and also started many more other companies through his mere determination, through his hard work and so on. So if I ask you one question, that why should we or why do we study the life of certain great personalities? Answer may be right. You may have different answers, but you are all right. We study the life of different people in order to be inspired by them, in order to know their life journey, get inspired and live our life according to our own intentions, our own whims and fancies, also according to our own vision that we have for our own life. So studying the life of people only inspires us, motivates us, and therefore today we are going to study about this particular lesson, namely connecting the dots. Before I go to the text, I'd like to explain what this connecting the dot is. Actually, it is a speech given by Steve Jobs himself to the graduate students, and here he explains the three beautiful stories of his own life. And these are not only the stories of his own life, but they were actually the real incident of his own life. So when he encountered this real incidents of his own life, how did he come out of this problem and how did he solve out? So it will inspire us to how we can also make our life beautiful and successful one. So let us read this lesson and try to understand connecting the dots. Today I want to tell you three stories from my life. That's it. So here it is a speech and therefore he has begun. Today I want to tell three stories from my life and that's all I want to tell. So he is telling to the students, addressing to the students the farewell message. Just three stories. And the first story is about connecting the dots. So out of those three stories, the number one story that he is going to tell us now is connecting the dots. If you see the glossary of your textbook, connecting the dots, you will get the meaning also. So, I dropped out of the Reed College after the 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months before I really quit. So here, the writer is telling that I dropped out, meaning is given there, discontinued or left the college. So he says, I left the Reed College after the first 6 months and stayed there only as a drop-in meaning visitor, for another 18 months before he really left the college. So he was not a regular student, but he was going to the college whenever he wanted, and therefore he is telling, I was only a drop-in student for another 18 months before he really left the college. Looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So that's what he is telling. I did not regularly attend the college and he is not regretting the decision that he took, and he says it was one of the best decisions that I have ever made. I could stop taking the required classes that did not interest me and I began dropping in one that looked very interesting for me. So he says I could leave out what was not interesting for me and I could continue to learn what interested me. So therefore here one of the important point, he says that do whatever you want to do, but see how you can do the things which are very very interesting for you. So some of you, I know you are good at painting, good at drawing, you may not be good at studies, but then I request you that do which is very very interesting to you and give your 100%. So he is telling that did not interest me and drop into another college which interested me. I did not have a dormitory. I did not have a dorm room, so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. So he's telling I did not have my own private room where I could take rest, and therefore I shared the common bedroom with my friends. And that also I slept on the floor, not on the bed, but on the floor, the hardships of life. I returned Coke bottles for the 5 cents deposits to buy food with, and I walked 17 or 7 miles across the town every Sunday night to get a good meal a week, and that is at the Hare Krishna temple. So here he is telling that he did not have proper bed to sleep through the hard work of whole day. He could not rest himself properly. He returned Coke bottle. That means he sold this Coke bottle for 5 cent. Cent is a currency, a coin which has 100 of US dollar. So he did not have money. Therefore, he used to sell out the Coke bottles, empty bottles, so that he can buy a good food which was required for his health. And also he says, I would walk 7 miles across the town. 7 miles he has to walk every Sunday so that he can get a good meal, and that also from a Hare Krishna temple where people used to freely give food to the people, needy people, and there he used to go and get his need, that is the need of food, to be satisfied. And he says, I loved it. I did not regret what I did, but I loved doing so. Walking 7 miles across the country and getting a good meal, also sleeping on the floor, selling the Coke bottles. So these are the things that he says, I loved it. I never ever regretted what I was doing, or I was not feeling very, very sorry. So do what you love it. And much of what I stumbled into by following my own curiosity and intuition, and that turned out to be priceless later on. And therefore he says, I followed my curiosity, ability to know something, curious, intention, and intuition, and antargyan, knowing your own conscious. So he says, I followed my conscious, my intuition, and I was eager to learn and know things. And that willingness had paid me price later on. That means whatever struggle that I underwent at this particular stage of time, I have learned many things from that, and therefore these are the priceless he is telling. Here is one example. Reed College offered perhaps the best calligraphy instructions in the country. And because I had to take calligraphy class, I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about what makes great typography great. So he says, I took the admission, you have already seen that he took the admission in the Reed College for learning the best calligraphy. But then he says, I dropped in and dropped out. And what I learned from there, namely the serif and sans serif. Sans, if you understand, sans means without. You might have already learned the meaning of sans, where in the poem that we have seen, the 7 stages of man, all the word is a stage. So I learned about sans, serif and serif typefaces, and because of which these are the great typography which made the computer script very, very interesting and very, very appealing too. So here sans and sans serif, these are the two things that you need to understand. Again, intuition, the ability to know immediately. Purogyan or antargyan, calligraphy is a decorative handwriting, and curiosity, strong desire to know things. Here if you see in the picture, serif and sans serif typefaces are given there. Sans, as I said, without, and serif is with. So here if you see sans serif without the curve that is given there, round circle if you see. So these are the two typefaces that he developed by learning the calligraphy. 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. It all came back to me, meaning what he learned, namely the typefaces or the calligraphy that he developed, it had come back to him. That means he is going to design those typefaces in his Macintosh computer. And we designed it all into the Mac. If I had never dropped in on that course in the college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces, or for that matter even proportionally spaced fonts. So he's telling, if I had never dropped in, earlier we have seen he was going in, dropping in for another 18 months in the college, and therefore he says if I had not dropped into that college, I would never ever had invented this typefaces, namely serif and sans serif. And if he had not invented these two typefaces, the Macintosh computer would not have become very popular, or this particular typefaces would not have become very popular. So he says it all came back to me. Macintosh proportionally in proportion to or in a due degree, and typefaces meaning a particular type of design, and these are the design or the font design that you find in your laptop, in your computer, and so on. And since Windows just copied Mac, and Windows just copied the Mac, namely the typefaces that we had in the Mac, it's likely no personal computer would ever have them, and of course it was impossible to connect the dots looking backward when I was in college. But it was very clear looking backward 10 years later. So one of the important point here you can see for our own life, connecting the dots. How can we connect the dots? How can we connect one idea to the another idea? So he says you cannot connect the dots looking backward, and you can only connect them looking forward. Very important to understand for each of you. You cannot connect the dots looking forward, but you can only connect them by looking backward. That means if you see in the picture from where he has begun and where he has come. So here the speaker is telling that if you want to excel or if you want to become successful in your life, we don't know what is in our future. But the past that we have left, or the things that we have learned in the past, will naturally shape our future. So we can, therefore he's telling you cannot connect the dots looking forward, but you can connect the dots by looking backwards. We do not know what is our future, but we can shape our future by looking at our past. That is what here he is intending to do, or to say so. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future, meaning to say whatever you are learning today will never go waste. Whatever little skill, maybe your drawing, maybe your games that you are, or any skill that you are developing right now, will never ever go waste. It will somehow produce a better fruit in the future. Therefore nothing is waste that you are learning right now. Therefore he says your dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in some things, maybe your guts, maybe the destiny, maybe life, or maybe karma, whatever one person can call it. And this approach has never let me down, nirash karna, never let me down, and it has made all difference in my life. If you see the two roads, or the road not taken, that you have learned in the 9th standard, so it all made a difference in my life, meaning to say I followed my guts, my destiny, my life, my karma, whatever one may define, and because of which I have never been very unhappy with the life, because whatever I learned it. Whatever I love to do, I did it. Whatever was interesting me, I did it, and therefore I never ever regret for those things, and that's how I have designed my life. Therefore he says this approach has never let me down. I have never been dissatisfied or anxious about. The story is about love and loss. I found what I love to do early in life. So second story is talking about love and loss, and he very importantly says, I found what I love to do early in life. Therefore, love what you do in your life. Woos and I started Apple when I was 20. In 10 years' time, Apple had grown from just two of us into a garage, into a US $2 million company. And therefore, he says that in 10 years' time, we had worked so hard that we got the turnover of $2 billion US. But then it was at that point of time when we got the turnover of $2 billion, I got fired, meaning to say I lost the job. And it was devastating. It was causing a severe distress, a grief, a sorrow, because when I was progressing very much, then and there I lost the job. But something slowly began to dawn on me, began to become clear. But something was becoming more and more clear, that I was not meant to be there, but I was something different to do in the life. I still loved what I did. I never left doing what I loved. So I decided to start over, begin newly. I started to begin again. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. So here he is telling that I lost the job. I have to begin again anew, afresh. But then he is telling it was one of the most creative period of my life so that I can do something. I can invent something. During the next 5 years, I started a company, namely Next, and another company, namely Pixar. And therefore, he is telling that these were the certain things which were perhaps inviting him, or if he had been always with the Apple company, he could not have started of his own, namely the Next and the another company, Pixar. Therefore, he started something being creative, and he started his own company, namely Pixar and the Next. I fell in love with an amazing woman who had become my wife. Pixar is now the world's most successful animation studio. So Pixar is an animation studio company. Apple bought Next. I listened to Apple, and the technology we developed at the Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. So later he came back again to the Apple company, but the technology that he developed in the company, namely Next, was something which was giving a new birth, a new life, or a revival to the company Apple. And Lauren and I have a wonderful family together. Sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick, but don't lose faith. Meaning to say, when you begin something new, you will have to face many of the difficulties. But at the time of difficulty, don't lose faith. Have faith in yourself. Believe in your own convictions. The only way to do great work is to do or is to love what you do. Very, very important. Work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep on looking, but don't settle. Therefore, he says, keep on progressing. Do not settle at one place, but continue to progress in the life. The third story is about death. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and my doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code word for prepare to die. So in the third story, he says it was all about the death, namely, I was diagnosed with cancer, and the doctors had told me that I have to go at home, and whatever matter is there to be settled, I have to settle before I die, which is the doctor's code word for prepare to die. So doctors told me that you are no longer going to live for a long time, and before you die, get your affairs, your things settled. I lived with that diagnosis all day, and later that evening I had a biopsy. It turned out to be a very rare form of pancreatic cancer that is curable only with surgery. So the writer here was suffering from the pancreatic cancer, and it can be cured only with the surgery. He has to undergo biopsy and so on. I had the surgery and I am fine now. This was the closest I have been facing death. So he says, I knew what is the death because I was very close to death. Therefore, it was the closest that I have ever been facing death. And I hope it is the closest I get for a few more decades. Meaning to say, as long as I live, I have to know this reality that I am being diagnosed with the cancer and I have to live very short life. Having lived through it, having gone through it, it can now, or I can say now this for you or this to you, that your time is limited. Do not waste it living someone else's life. Very, very important. For our own life, he says, our life is limited. So we should not waste our life by living the somebody else's life. Meaning to say that most of the time we are influenced by the society, we are influenced by the family. Many a time we think what people will say. If I do certain things, what people will say. What will be the opinion of the people. But he says, live your own life because your life is limited. We all are pilgrim people here. We are on this earth for a short time. And when our time is over, we have to leave this planet, this earth. And so he says, don't waste it in living someone's life, what people will say. But believe in your conviction and live your own life. Don't be trapped by dogmas. Don't be trapped. Trap meaning caught. Don't be caught by the dogmas. Meaning is given. Dogma meaning belief or a set of beliefs held by a group or organization which others are expected to accept without argument. Meaning to say, without knowing the reason, we should not follow certain traditions, certain customs, or the dogmas or the teachings of our religion, which is the living with the result of others people thinking. So dogmas are created by the other people's thinking, their own personal experiences. Our experiences can be different, so therefore we should live with our own experiences, our own conviction. And he says, don't be caught away by the dogmas, which is the result of others people thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinion drown out your own inner voice. Listen to your inner voice, listen to your intuition. Don't be worried about what people are saying. Don't worry about the opinions of the people, but listen to your inner voice. Your inner voice will always lead you to the correct path. It will never ever mislead you, or it will never ever give you a wrong direction, but it will always give you a correct direction. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. So two things we should always follow, namely our heart and intuition. And that is what the inner voice. They, namely heart and intuition, they show somehow already know what you truly want to become. Because your heart, your intuition will guide you, your inner voice will guide you what you want to become in your life. But for that you should have time for yourself. Know yourself. You should reflect on your own life. Then only you can know the intuitions or your heart's feeling, and your inner voice you can listen. Otherwise, if you are caught up in the fancies of the world, if you are caught up in the wealth of this world, if you don't have place for God, naturally you will not know what is your inner voice, or what is your heart, and what is your intuition. When I was young, there was an amazing publication called the Whole Earth Catalog. So in the last he says, when I was young, I came across an amazing publication whose name was the Whole Earth Catalog, the name of the book or a catalog. In the final issue, on the back cover, they put a photograph of an early morning country road, and beneath it were the words, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." It was their farewell message as they signed off. I always wished that for myself. Stay hungry and stay foolish. And now, as you graduate to begin new, I wish that for you. What is that? Stay hungry and stay foolish. In the life, always stay hungry and stay foolish in order to achieve something. Because these are the three stories of his own life, the real life stories, which are quite inspiring. The first one was connecting the dot. Second was about love and loss, and the third one was about his death. So these are the things which we also sometime in our lifetime keep coming, and we should get inspired by the life of Steve Jobs and try to understand, or try to listen to our inner voice, try to listen to your heart and intuition, and make our life a successful one. Here there are some of the amazing life lessons that Steve Jobs wants to tell us. Don't wait. Make your own reality. Control everything you can. Own your mistakes. Take the responsibility of your own mistake. Know thyself. Very, very important. Know yourself. When you know yourself, then only you will be able to hear your inner voice, your heart, and your intuition. Leave the door open for the fantastic, meaning to say, keep on looking. Don't settle at one place. But if you fail in one time, keep it open, that sometime back again you will flourish, or you will get success in your life. Don't hold back. Surround yourself with brilliance. Always accompany yourself with the brilliant people, because their company will make you big, or it will inspire you, or it will affect your life too. Build a team of A players. Be yourself. Love yourself. Be yourself. Be persuasive. Be always following others. Following here others meaning always keep on looking. Show others the way. If you show the others the way, you also will be showed the way. Trust your instinct, your basic inborn qualities. Trust in your instinct, the quality that you have, which are inborn. Take risks. Unless and until you take risk, you cannot achieve anything great in the life. So take risk. Follow great with great. Make tough decisions. Presentation can make a world of difference. Find a way to balance your intensity. Live for today. Live the reality. And lastly, he says, share your wisdom, your knowledge. And by doing so, you can live your life a most successful one so that people will remember not the life that you lived, but the work that you did here on earth. So these are some of the one-liner which are very, very inspiring, amazing for each one of us. And if you try to make these things or some of the things which are given here, our own philosophy, our own way of living, naturally will become successful in our life. Thank you, dear students. I hope you have understood this lesson. Have a nice day.